In this video, we're going to go through some exercises that are going to help you become more robust, more resilient to injury, and ultimately become a better runner. Why is strength training so important for runners? I know there are so many more people out there doing it now, but there are still a whole bunch of runners who don't touch strength training. So the first point is pretty obvious, and it's improved strength, improved power. So if you're able to do this, then you're going to generate more forces into the ground. You're going to recover better between sets. You're going to recover better between sessions. You're going to move more efficiently. There's not necessarily one right way to do things, but there's a typical kind of structure that I tend to follow, and it works something like this. So we're going to start the session with some sort of mobilization. So we're going to be working on typical tight areas with runners, and the first place that I always start is hips. So we're going to start off with a hip airplane. The good thing about a hip airplane is it can be scaled from difficult to much easier, and we're going to show you the easiest version of the hip airplane, which is the assisted hip airplane, where you're going to hold on to something. This is going to challenge your stability around the ankle, knee and the hip, which is absolutely crucial for all things running, but it's also going to help you open up the hips, help them be a little bit more mobile. One of the most common problems or injuries with runners is hip flexor problems or hip flexor tightness. We're then going to move on to a plyometric movement or a kind of jumping movement. Now, one of the most underrated things when it comes to training as an athlete or as a runner, as a footballer, is jumping, bounding, landing, all that sort of stuff. It'll help us be able to generate more force into the ground with whatever activity that it is that we do. And if that thing is running, generating force into the ground efficiently is massively helpful. So the reason that I've picked split squats is because these are going to help with single leg power. So anytime that we do the plyometric movement, we work what we call as the stretch shortening cycle. Now you could imagine that the stretch shortening cycle is almost like an elastic band. So the more that we train the stretch shortening cycle through things like plyometrics, things like split squats, the more aggressive our elastic band gets. We want it to be aggressive, we want to be bouncy, we want to be able to feel like we're gliding when we're running. So that's why plyometrics is so important, and this is the exercise that I picked. So single leg hops or bounds. So what I'm doing here in this video is I'm pretty much playing hopscotch. Hop onto one leg and then instantly jumping again onto the next leg. What's going to be involved here is a load of force absorption, making sure that you land comfortably and safely each hop that you take, and then regenerating that force back into the ground to then take the next one. With any sort of plyometric movement, you can scale it forwards and back by just doing less reps. Make sure between your plyometric work to rest, because you want to be able to allow that muscle to recover so that you can generate maximal force again on the next set. That's something that people do wrong with plyometric work and jumping work, is they don't rest long enough and they just jump straight back into the next set. After moving on from the plyometric work, we would pick some sort of accessory movement that works on a typical weakness within runners, and one of those typical weaknesses is our calves, and more specifically the soleus. When your leg is locked out, the gastroc or the gastrocnemius is the main part of the calf that's working, but when you bend your knee, the soleus is the part of the calf that's working. The reason that we're bending our knee in this movement is to isolate the soleus as much as we possibly can and work on it, as it's a weakness. And your calves are so important when it comes to running. They're responsible for force absorption, they're responsible for propelling you forward. A strong calf can not only support good running form, but it can support good running efficiency, meaning that you leak less fatigue through every step. Tight calves and a sore Achilles, nobody wants. So make sure you're doing these. So then we move on to leg extensions. Now, you've probably seen hundreds of people in the gym doing leg extensions. It's typically bodybuilders trying to make those quads much bigger, but they do serve a purpose for runners alike. You ever felt that running down a hill is just as hard as running up a hill? And the reason for that is because you end up putting so much force into every step going down the way, and you end up burning out that part just above your knee into the quad. Now, this is what leg extensions are for. They're for strengthening this part of the quad. Get those quads strong, get them conditioned, and it'll help you with dealing with running downhill. Then we've got the loaded split squat. There are so many different variations of this exercise that you can do, but the way that I've done it, I've loaded it with 2 kettlebells up the front here. The main point of this exercise is to build single leg strength in the quads, the hamstrings and the glutes, and obviously the calves are in play as well. By loading the kettlebells at the front, you're actually going to challenge your core a little bit to hold them there as well. A good strength program always needs a compound movement. A compound movement is a multi-joint exercise. Deadlifts, squats, bench press, overhead press. So the one that I've picked for runners is a trap bar deadlift. Your trap bar deadlift is a hinge movement, kind of like a conventional deadlift, but with a little bit more of a knee bend and a little bit more of a squat pattern involved. The trap bar deadlift is going to work lower back, quads, hamstrings, glutes, core. There's just so much going on. And then finally, we've got the sled push. Now, the sled push is an exercise you maybe recognise from circuit classes or from high rocks, but it does really serve a purpose for runners as well, and I'll tell you why. When pushing the sled, you're generating horizontal force going that way. That's exactly what we want to do when we're running. We don't want to generate force up the way. We attack the sled with this positive angle, this positive shin angle. Now that's really good as well. Now I want to make a point here about strength training and about the exercises that you've seen today. A lot of the time when you're a runner, there's this fear that doing strength training is going to make you too big, it's going to make you slow, it's going to make you sluggish, and that just could not be further than the truth. There's also a fear around, but I don't want to be fatigued for my runs, I don't want to be tired. And the problem tends to be not in the actual strength training, but in the dosage of the strength training. So if you were wanting to run a half marathon, but you'd only ever run 3 kilometers, you wouldn't then just go, okay, I'm just going to go and run the half marathon anyway. You would build up to 5, 6, 7, 8. You would get faster, you would build your tempo, you would build your pace, you would build your speed. Now it's the same in the gym. You wouldn't just go and grab 2 50-kilogram dumbbells and try and dumbbell press them the first time that you got in there if you'd only ever dumbbell pressed 5 kilograms before. You would try and build yourself up slowly but surely over months, maybe even over years to get there. And that's the way that you need to approach your strength training alongside your running. Start maybe even body weight, start really light, low dose, low intensity, and then build it up over time so that you can incorporate these movements alongside your running, and you can build the capacity to be able to recover from your strength training alongside your running. Yes, initially it may feel different, it may feel sore, you may get worse DOMs than what you really wanted, you might get sore legs, and that's okay, because over time your body adapts, just like it does to your running, just like it does to doing more and more miles. So that's why it's important to incorporate this over time, because you will see benefit. All the top guys are doing it, all the biggest athletes in the world. Your Mo Farahs, your Kipchoge's, they're all doing a little bit of strength training alongside the running that they're doing. It's just fact.